Good afternoon, everyone. May I offer a warm welcome to the 2018 award ceremony of the Carnegie Wateler Peace Prize 2018 and the new, awarded for the first time today, Youth Carnegie Peace Prize. My name's Sally Magnuson. I'm a broadcaster from Scotland, the birthplace of Andrew Carnegie, and I'll be leading you through this very heartwarming occasion. May I start by inviting Eric de Baets, Director of the Carnegie Foundation, to say his own word of welcome.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, dear judges and ambassadors, members of the family of Andrew Carnegie and John Wateler, distinguished guests, and especially Mr. Rudy Franks and Mr. Leonardo Paraga, the Peace Laureates of today. It is my pleasure to welcome you all here in the Great Hall of Justice of the Peace Palace. The Peace Palace was built more than a century ago after the Hague Peace Conferences that took place at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century on the initiative of the last Russian Tsar, with Queen Wilhelmina as honorary chair. In order to promote world peace, in a spirit full of idealism, the notion of peace through law prevailed. It was decided to settle conflicts peacefully through arbitration as much as possible. To that end, the Permanent Court of Arbitration was established. On behalf of the Dutch government, the Queen then approached Andrew Carnegie, the richest man in the world at that time, who became a philanthropist and gave all of his capital away for the good of society, promoting education, libraries, science, heroism, and eventually peace, in order to fund the housing of this court. Carnegie was willing to do so, but with his vision, he requested the support of a library of international law to facilitate the legal practice. Both this palace and the renowned Peace Palace Library are still managed by the Carnegie Foundation today. Since 1946, the Peace Palace also houses the principal judicial organ of the United Nations, the International Court of Justice. It is in this great hall of justice where normally the sessions of the International Court of Justice take place. Cases recently dealt with here include Iran versus the United States of America on the sanctions related to the agreement on nuclear power, Ukraine versus Russia on financing of terrorism, and India versus Pakistan on a matter of life and death. This gives you just some idea on the matters dealt with in this very room. The other court has even more cases in its docket, but mainly confidential arbitrations, so I cannot and will not elaborate on those here. Any conflict solved here in the palace, in the courtroom, instead of on the battlefield, is a gain for humanity. So we are very happy that it is the core business of the Carnegie Foundation to serve these institutions to do their important work, including the Hague Academy of International Law that also promotes the knowledge of international law to settle conflicts peacefully. Following the original deed of Andrew Carnegie, the Foundation also stimulates public events and dialogues that foster peace. We were very happy to host the Carnegie Peace Building Conversations the last three days with many partners. It is for that reason, to foster peace, that we are all gathered here today as well. Following the great example of Andrew Carnegie, the Dutch banker John Wateler also became a philanthropist. He decided to celebrate peace heroes here and entrusted the board of the Carnegie Foundation to award those who make an outstanding effort for peace. The work of the laureates of the Carnegie Wateler Peace Prize and, since this year, the first Youth Carnegie Peace Prize illustrate and inspire regarding the responsibility we all have in achieving a better world. The stories of these laureates are unique, and we will learn more about this year's winners' impressive efforts shortly. For now, for this celebration, I would like to thank the General Representation of the Government of Flanders for their kind support to facilitate this ceremony, and the Youth Peace Initiative and UNOI for the cooperation to award for the very first time this Carnegie Youth Peace Prize. I thank you all very much, and I wish you an inspiring event.
Thank you very much, Eric. We're going to have our first musical interlude now from the Damas duo, who are Syrian violinist Shalan Alhamwi and Belgian accordionist Jonas Malfleet. They're going to offer us a little taste of their repertoire of Arabic and European folk music and originals. As you'll see in the program, their name is inspired by the luxurious textile damask from Damascus, the Syrian capital, which spread all over the world through the trade route along the Silk Road. And this cultural crossover between East and West is what defines their music. So please welcome them now as they play à la mémoire du passé. Well, thank you very much, and you'll be glad to hear that they'll be playing again shortly. We come now to the very first presentation of the new Youth Carnegie Peace Prize. Rather than tell you about it, I'd like to ask Ted Brower to come out and explain where you come. Ted is chair of the Youth Peace Initiative, which was founded to give youth in conflict areas a chance to participate in peace processes. So tell me, Ted, why has the Youth Carnegie Peace Prize been inaugurated?
Well, Sally, as you might know, youth, younger generations play an important role, if not a pivotal role, in establishing peaceful societies. And young peace builders are aware of this, and they are working on this on a daily basis to achieve a better world. However, a progress report on the very first UN resolution on youth, peace and security, UN Resolution 2250, showed that the civic space for these young peace builders is shrinking. So they could use some support. And therefore, the Carnegie Foundation, Peace Palace, the United Network of Young Peace Builders, and the Youth Peace Initiative decided to inaugurate the Youth Carnegie Peace Prize. And the Youth Carnegie Peace Prize gives recognition to the work of these young peace builders. It aims to raise awareness for the difficult context in which they work, and it aims to inspire and encourage others to start their own project.
And what did the participants have to do?
Well, they had to send a video because together with the prize we created a video contest, and the participants had to send in a video of a maximum of 3 minutes, and in this video they should briefly present their work and also talk about how they tackle one or more of the following 3 challenges. So challenge 1 is finding sustainable funds. This is one of the most persistent problems that young peace builders face, is how do they get sufficient funds? And the second challenge is about promoting meaningful participation of youth in formal peace and political transition processes. As despite the significance of inclusive engagement in building peace, youth is often not included. And we ask these initiatives how they get youth at the table. And the last challenge is creating safe and trustful civic spaces. And we ask the initiatives how do they bring others together to build trust and understanding, mutual, which are 2 concepts that I think are, well, the basis of paving the road for sustainable peace.
And did you get a lot of entries? Where did they come from?
Yes, we got a lot of entries. It was great to see the effort that they've put in. I mean, some simply used their phone to bring a video message, while others gave a very high-end production. And we received entries from Afghanistan to Kyrgyzstan, from Nigeria to Nepal. And all these videos will, of course, be published on our websites as well. So I would say, all in all, it was very encouraging to see how many young peace builders showed their work, and it's encouraging to see how many of them are working on our common future.
And the video we're going to see now, Ted, that's a sort of taster of some of the different entries.
Yes, it is. So go ahead.
Okay, well, let's have a look at that now. Just some of the best practices among the entries that competed for the Youth Carnegie Peace Prize.
Youth Organization helps to find markets for their locally produced products and receives a 20% of the profits to sustain further initiatives of the Project Kamulatan.
We constantly look at fresh ways on how to get youth involved and how to create our own funds. We host fashion shows where we give refugee designers a platform with local designers and celebrities.
Number 1, crowdfunding. These days, more and more people are seeking and finding funds online for their initiatives. Try creating a compelling campaign on a crowdfunding platform online, and you might be surprised what you find.
Throughout this project, we were also able to meet high-level government officials, active politicians, and social activists.
Spark Media, what's great about us is we have the opportunity to engage in the Maltese political sector and sphere. Personally, a lot of our members have been invited personally by the president to come and speak about our media foundation.
For our first project, we drafted a bill called the Sexual Offences and the Murders Bill 2015.
Cartas por la reconciliación. Nosotros estuvimos por las calles, fuimos a colegios, a universidades, buscando personas que quisieran transmitirles a ustedes el mensaje, porque de verdad somos personas que creemos que la paz es de la mujer de ustedes, ni del Estado, sino de toda la sociedad.
Es muy importante, sería ideal que muchas de las personas de nuestro país pudieran venir a estas zonas veredales, a conectarse con ellos, a ver a las personas como esos seres sociales que pueden transformar el mundo.
So there you are, that's a flavour of the entries, and it's announced the winner. So I'm going to invite Lorraine Degerson, who's the leading coordinator of the United Network of Young Peace Builders, to come up and just tell us why the prize has gone to Bogart.
Thank you, Sally. Good afternoon, everyone. It's very exciting to be part of this ceremony. And it's very exciting to be part of this partnership, which has led to the creation of a youth version of this honorable prize. It's also been very exciting and even a privilege to be on the selection committee for the winner of this prize, together with the Youth Peace Initiative and the Carnegie Foundation. The selection was not easy, and I would like to acknowledge and send my rewards to the two initiatives that got second and third place: the Global Generation for Peace Initiative from Nigeria, that we saw in the video just shown now, and the Sophie Kanza Foundation from South Africa. It's also my pleasure and my pride to introduce the winner of this prize. It's an organization that is a member of the United Network of Young Peace Builders, called Fundación Bogotá, or the Bogotá Foundation, a youth-led peace-building organization based in Colombia that promotes peace and democracy by providing access to arts and public spaces to marginalized, hard-to-reach, and at-risk youth communities, and doing so using art for catalyzing social equality and reconciliation. The video stood out for, I would say, two main reasons. One is the relevance to the political context in Colombia. And two, because it shows the potential to, the project that Bogotá develops shows the potential to change two mindsets. One, by evidencing the relevance of youth engagement to building peace. And two, by also showing how we should think about reconciliation in post-conflict contexts. I think it's time to watch the video now.
Cartas por la reconciliación. Nosotros estuvimos por las calles, fuimos a colegios, a universidades, buscando personas que quisieran transmitirles a ustedes el mensaje, porque de verdad somos personas que creemos que la paz es de la mujer de ustedes, ni del Estado, sino de toda la sociedad.
Y pues al recibir esta carta ahorita, ya con el proceso de paz, pues como le decía, ¿no? Los medios de comunicación nos han dicho que nosotros somos los diablos, que somos lo peor, pero pues nosotros no somos lo peor, ¿no? Nosotros somos personas que queremos un cambio, ¿sí? Pero con justicia social, ¿no? Donde todos quepamos y agradecerles, ¿no? A ustedes los estudiantes por interesarse en este proceso, ¿sí? Queremos al lado de las comunidades, queremos ir a construir, queremos desarrollarnos, queremos de entrar a la población civil, ¿sí? Para vivir juntos, compartir.
Considero que es una de las experiencias más lindas, pero también más impactantes que puede tener cualquier colombiano o colombiana en nuestro país. ¿Por qué? Porque conoces la otra cara de la guerra, ¿sí? Conoces la organización FARC-EP, cómo está organizada, quiénes son las personas que la integran, pero sobre todo cuáles son las historias de vida que tienen cada uno de ellos. Así como nosotros en la sociedad civil tenemos una historia de vida bonita, difícil, ellos también tienen una historia que contar. Es muy importante, sería ideal que muchas de las personas de nuestro país pudieran venir a estas zonas veredales, a conectarse con ellos, a ver a las personas como esos seres sociales que pueden transformar el mundo.
Si quiero enviarle un mensaje a todas las personas que escribieron estas cartas tan bonitas de acogimiento hacia la guerrillerada, que este tipo de trabajo es necesario y muy valioso, porque aquí las personas se van a sentir acogidas y no van a tener los temores que normalmente se tiene de salir a las ciudades, de que toda la gente los va a rechazar.
¿Cómo me cambia a mí la perspectiva? Radicalmente. Siempre me crié en el ambiente en el cual me decían que las FARC eran lo más malo que había en el país, que a las FARC si había una explosión, un secuestro, lo que fuera, siempre era culpa de las FARC. Son personas al igual que nosotros, que quizás tuvieron un pasado pues no muy bueno, pero de todos modos yo como persona yo los perdono, y simplemente si algún día me lo encontrara a una persona con la que yo interactúo aquí en la calle, fácilmente yo le invitaría a un café y le diría que hablemos, que busquemos una solución a algo y que busquemos hacer de Colombia un mejor país para todos.
I would like now to invite Leonardo Parraga, Executive Director of Fundación Bogotá, to come and receive his prize on behalf of his organization. Throughout the world. Well
Thank
done.
you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you particularly because we, young people, usually don't get a space to talk about peace building when it comes to decision-making stages. And it's an honor to be here at the Peace Palace, sharing this moment with you, because peace precisely should belong to a palace. Peace is so precious, it's something that we so much want as a society, that we need to protect it and we need to keep it in social sacred space. And it is precisely in social sacred space as the SDG house for the 16th goal that we should bring all the voices, and particularly those voices of all who have been affected by the conflict and by the consequences of war. And it is precisely the silence that now we're living in Colombia, the silence of the more than 295 social leaders that have been killed since the peace agreement have been signed. This is a really heavy silence that we all carry in our society. And those are voices that we have lost, but we as young people, we believe that we need to hear all the voices. And as a society, we only have one side of the story. We have only experienced war from the screens. We have only experienced wars through what the media is constantly saying to us. And we needed to find a new way to portray this other side of the story. Who are the other actors who are playing in this conflict? And we saw that it was a big opportunity to bring together civil society and FARC ex-combatants to have, for the first time in more than 50 years of war, a conversation. We believe that if we have started a dialogue 52 years before, we could have prevented a problem that have cost us more than 250,000 lives lost, that have cost us more than 7 million victims in our country, and that in one way or another have affected all of us as citizens. At the same time, we also believe that this is a hopeful stage. We also believe that this is a window of opportunity for us, because after participating in this project, we saw how ex-combatants who have lived their whole life in the jungle, who have only used weapons during their whole life, after receiving a letter, they saw for the first time not only a message of encouragement, but a welcoming message to be again part of society, a welcoming message to feel integrated, to feel that they have a second chance. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe that every citizen should have this opportunity, should feel that no matter which mistakes they made, and no matter which decisions they made, there should be an opportunity for them to redeem what they have done. And there should be an opportunity for them to start all over again. We also saw victims. We saw victims who experienced how their whole family was massacred by FARC ex-combatants. We saw how they lost everything that created their whole sense of humanity. And we saw how they were able to write a letter where they express their forgiveness. They express their desire to start all over again for the first time, letting them be at peace, being new citizens, willing to start all over again, and seeing not what happened in the past, but an opportunity to create a future together. So my call here for you all is that now we have a window of opportunity. We have neglected young people in peace processes for a long, long time. In the last 20 years, there have been 900 peace agreements, and this is the number of young people who have participated in them. If we keep doing the same, we're not going to achieve a sustainable peace in any country. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because after seeing this big act of reconciliation between two groups that were calling each other enemy, between two groups who were not able to see one another in the eyes, I see that there are some chances of rebuilding our societies. And I imagine how we can start to live in a society where being a social leader is not considered a death sentence, but being a social leader is considered an honor. And I imagine a country where the future generations will read in the storybooks. They will read how their parents were the last generation to experience war. And I believe that the only way in which we can achieve that is if we start to invest in young people getting involved in peace processes. This is our window of opportunity. The time is now. If we miss this chance, the youth, we will remain the missing piece for generations to come. Thank you very much.
I've been chairing the Carnegie Peacebuilding Conversations for the last 3 days, and in every session, Leonardo has spoken, has participated, and I've been struck every time by the wisdom and the profundity and the challenge to us of his contributions. So I'm thrilled that he's won today, and I think you've got a flavor of what we've heard from him over the last 3 days. So congratulations, Leonardo. We're moving on next to the Carnegie Wateler Prize, Peace Prize, but before then, some more music from the Damast duo. They're going to play Hal Asmaralun, which is a traditional tune from Syria. Thank you. We come now to the presentation of the Carnegie Wateler Peace Prize, which is awarded every 2 years by the board of the Carnegie Foundation to a person or institution who has furthered the cause of international peace. Can I ask Dr. Bernard Bott, chairman of the Carnegie Foundation, to announce the winner?
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, members of the Wateler family, and most especially Rudy Franks. Thank you all for being here this afternoon in the Great Hall of Justice of the Peace Palace for the award ceremony of the biannually given Carnegie Wateler Peace Prize. To honor both national as well as international persons or organizations, the Carnegie Wateler Peace Prize alternates between a Dutch and an international laureate. In 2016, the prize went to the Dutch laureate Sigrid Kaag, the current Minister for Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation, for her successfully led OPCW-UN joint mission on the elimination of Syrian chemical weapons. Well, unfortunately, she cannot be with us today because she is at the moment in the United Nations for the opening of the General Assembly. But of course, she has said that in spirit, she is here. This year, the prize goes to an international laureate, and I must say, excellence does not always have to come from far away. This time, the board of the Carnegie Foundation found this year's laureate in our neighboring country, Belgium. Peace and war run as permanent thread through the life of Rudy Franks. After being graduated as an historian, he started his career at the Center for Peace Research. And I think that's very appropriate because these past 3 days we have been talking about peace-building conversations, dialogue, and so we have another expert among our midst. There he made scenarios and films about war and peace without knowing yet how many battlefields he would see in his life. Not on the silver screen in the cinema, but in real life as a journalist. And meanwhile, Rudy Franks has been reporting on war conflicts for almost 30 years. He started his career as a war correspondent in 1989, reporting on the uprising against Ceausescu in Romania. Over the past decades, he has reported on wars and conflicts around the world, including in the former Yugoslavia, the Middle East and North Africa. And in order to draw attention to suffering and injustice in conflict situations, Franks was one of the last European journalists to leave Egypt during the violence breaking out after the Arab Spring. I would say a vocation, or even a way of life, that is not without risks. During an attack in Syria, he lost his French colleague. The board of the Carnegie Foundation recognized his enormous courage to travel to the most dangerous conflict areas in the world. In his reports and his many books, Mr. Franks shows us the lives of many people in conflict areas. And thanks to his in-depth, honest, and sometimes heartbreaking stories, he gives those people a face. Stories of ordinary people about human beings just like you and me, but with great impact. The stories of Franks inspire and encourage others to take action, or at least to ensure that those people are not forgotten. Because when portraying war situations, we are also portraying the lives of many women, men and children, a whole future generation that is at stake. And these future generations deserve our attention and also our cooperation. And therefore, I was delighted to also work together this year with the different youth organizations in the framework of the Youth Carnegie Peace Prize. And it gives me so much hope to see that the younger generation is so engaged with peace building, to see them forging a better future, a more peaceful world, not only for their own generations, but for all of us. This brings me back to the founding father of our foundation, Andrew Carnegie. In all his ideas, he was inspired by an intense belief in the future, in progress, in education, and in a future without war. His spirit, as well as his faith in the ability of individuals to better themselves, and thus the society in which they live, is a beacon of light for future generations to follow. The Carnegie Foundation Peace Palace hosted the last 3 days the first edition of the Carnegie Peace Building Conversations. Cooperation was the thread throughout the program. Cooperation between different worlds and players is essential in promoting peace. Cooperation starts with mutual understanding. And the Carnegie Peace Building Conversations generated fresh perspectives on peace building and conflict resolution through dialogue between persons from various backgrounds, including those directly affected by conflicts. And such new perspectives are much needed in view of the increasing complexity of situations involving conflict and war. The conversations also explored how private capital and philanthropic efforts can be effectively tied to public goals to promote peace now and for the generations to come. Peace philanthropy in the spirit of Andrew Carnegie and Johan Wateler. Thanks to the latter, we are all gathered here tonight. The Dutch banker Johan Wateler drew up his will during the First World War in 1916, and that will stipulated that an important philanthropic legacy should be given to the state of the Netherlands with the aim of awarding an annual peace prize after his death. When this will was made public, the Netherlands Parliament felt it had to renounce the honor of deciding and awarding this prize, as this might be considered as too political. It wanted to avoid any accusations of being biased towards one particular person or institution. And that is how the Carnegie Foundation was appointed as the authority responsible for the selection and adjudication of the prize. As a foundation, we are very proud of this responsibility to award the Peace Prize to a person or an institution which has distinguished itself in the pursuit of peace. During a big part of Wateler's life, the free and independent European press flourished. Throughout the First World War, the press was the principal medium of news distribution. But along with the war, there came a drop in newspaper titles on the market compared to the pre-war years. This was partly due to a lack of resources. Yet the main reasons were the censoring measures which were imposed on all newspapers from the beginning of the First World War. The evolution of approximately free and independent Europe press since the mid-19th century suddenly ended. Fortunately, afterwards, journalism has evolved enormously throughout the 20th and the 21st century. Just as in the days of Wateler, journalism plays an important role in preventing wars and achieving peace. Through its capacity to investigate, journalism can help people question established ideas and reflect on pressing issues. On the other hand, the way information is distributed can also contribute to escalating conflict, providing information that is manipulated. And in this sense, journalism and mass media greatly shape and impact societies. The newspaper NRC Handelsblad calls Rudy Franks the best war correspondent in the Dutch language area, I think, and that is well deserved. He has shown us the effect of conflict on daily life with personal reports. Reported on many wars for the Flemish Public Broadcasting Foundation, VRT, and the Dutch Public Broadcasting Foundation, NOS. And during the last few years, mainly on wars in Iraq and Syria. And the board believes that access to independent information is crucial for us all. It is crucial to prevent further peace or to contribute to the prevention of escalating conflicts. Rudy Franks is a man who focuses on to humanize the fate of victims of a conflict, seeking to uncover the complexities behind the violence-driven situations. And he puts all of this in the best possible way in practice. Rudy Franks has shown his outstanding commitment to reporting from conflict areas, giving people affected by conflict a face and a voice. Apart from showing the world the drama and the injustice of conflicts as a journalist, he has shown exceptional personal engagement with the inhabitants of conflict areas. When he came across a music school in the Iraqi city of Mosul that was completely destroyed by IS in 2017, he started a collection of musical instruments in his home country, Belgium. He finally delivered the 120 collected instruments, and he told us this morning that when the appeal was made, he collected more than 1,000 instruments, but of course he had to make a selection because all that was needed was 120. But you see how generous people can be if the right appeal is launched. So, with these 120 collected instruments, he went to the music school himself. His documentary about this project, Imagine Mosul, touches on many of these people and of these aspects. Back home, he followed up on the project by raising money for an organization that provides music lessons to young refugees in Belgium. An initiative that deserves, I think, enormous recognition. I think that it is most fitting, for all these reasons, that the Carnegie Wateler Peace Prize 2018 is handed to you, Mr. Rudy Franks. In this place, in the Peace Palace, an icon for peace and justice. But now you may say, where is my award, where is my prize? Before I will hand over this prize, this award, I would like to ask for a few more moments of your attention for a short film about Mr. Franks that illustrates his hard work and his passion. Thank you much. So, first of all, a short movie, and afterwards I will hand over the prize to Mr. Franks. Thank you very much.
Het lijkt wel mission impossible, maar misschien is de derde keer de goede keer. Aan de checkpoints is het chaos, duizenden voertuigen, maar als bij wonder raken we erdoor. De straten van Mosul, eindelijk. We zijn er. Hello, Frank. Nice to meet you. So happy we arrived here. Happy with you. Took us fucking 3 days. Situation. Yes. This is for the music instruments. Een mens wordt er wat licht van. Yeah, we have a lot of different instruments. So for you guys, but also for the new students who will come, and you will have to make bands. You have to play together. Okay. Can you help to all of us will bring it now. Yalla, at work. 120 instrumenten voor ieder wat. Een tiental muzikanten zijn komen opdagen. Emoties, tranen. 3 jaar kon het niet. En wat doen muzikanten dan eerst? Nee, instrumenten en muzikanten, allemaal hebben ze een eigen verhaal.
He was a violin player in the war before the big war last century in Belgium. And then since then he didn't play any violin anymore. And before he died, he got this violin. And now the daughter said, give it to somebody in another war.
You lose your head if you play music.
But how did you play music?
We play like we close the doors, the windows, the curtains, and we start to play like in a quiet. Feel like we do it. And after I finish my playing, I hide the guitar in the ceiling.
En dan tenslotte zoals het allemaal begonnen is 4 maanden geleden, na de nachtmerrie van IS. Imagine Mosul. De vernielde oude stad van Mosul. Meer dan een half jaar na het verdrijven van IS. Wonen blijft hier nog altijd onmogelijk. Overal liggen lijken en menselijke resten.
اكو مخلفات داعش كلها موجوده. انا ببيتي هسه بيتي جوا مئات البيوت هاي هسه هنا جواتنا مئات البيوت ومئات الافرع ومنهم هسه لحد الان عوائل جوا الانقاذ جوا بالبيوت.
In dit huis een moeder met 3 kinderen. Maar het ergste moet nog komen.
Het is hallucinant hier. Hè. Dat is het massagraf van IS-strijders in dit gebied, in Mosul. 6 maanden na de oorlog liggen ze hier nog allemaal verspreid. Met honderden, zeggen ze, soms duizenden. 40.000 huizen zijn hier vernield. Dat is eindeloos. Dat is waanzin wat hier gebeurd is. En wat ook nog erger maakt is, al wie hier ligt, we gaan nooit weten wie ze waren, wie ze zijn. Er zijn vrouwen bij, er zijn mannen bij. Men zegt dat er ook kinderen zijn die hier gevonden zijn. Naamloos, dat is de erfenis van IS. Rudy Franks, Journaal, Mosul.
Het Panzi ziekenhuis is wereldvermaard. Ooit was het een kraamkliniek. Vandaag is het een toevluchtsoord voor verkrachte vrouwen. Elke dag melden zich hier 10 nieuwe slachtoffers aan. Voor de mishandelde vrouwen is dokter Mukwege hun beschermer, hun held. In 2008 werd hij verkozen tot Afrikaan van het jaar, omwille van zijn strijd tegen het brutale oorlogsgeweld.
C'est vraiment une stratégie bien étudiée. Donc on attaque le village, on viole les femmes en public, on terrorise au maximum et le résultat de ça c'est que tous les villages fuient. Quand vous parlez de la destruction de la société,
Une question très personnelle. Comment vous tenez le coup? Vous avez vu des choses incroyables.
je ne sais pas si je tiens le coup. Je crois que j'ai des moments difficiles, comme tout humain. J'ai des moments où je me sens très, très, très bas, mais il y a aussi des moments où je me sens très encouragé par les victimes qui s'en sortent.
Ce sont des femmes qui vous donnent la force.
Absolument, absolument.
Voilà, hier zijn we weer. Nadat we 10 dagen geleden de bisschoppen in Noord-Irak hebben uitgewuifd, hebben 10 dagen lang niks gezegd op sociale media. Wou dat zijn Philip, de cameraman, Jan de klankman, Mark, de regisseur en ikzelf. Om veiligheidsredenen. Want we zijn de frontlinie tegen de islamitische staat gaan volgen hier in Noord-Irak. En om veiligheidsredenen, uiteraard. We willen niemand op ideeën brengen. We hebben dat stilgehouden. En we zijn ook kleine helden gaan draaien. Maar nu zijn we er weer. En de volgende dagen gaat u alles te weten komen. Too many nice words. Too many. First of all, I would like to thank my team. They're all here. Without them, I wouldn't be here, so thank you. But now the hard part. I was given 15 minutes. I will use them all. I'm sorry. But I want to share with you my thoughts and also my worries about the world we're living in and the job I'm doing. War correspondent. It sounds exotic, but in essence, it is simple. We tell the story of regular people in unusual circumstances, giving a face and a voice to those who would not otherwise have one. In the 30 years I've been doing this, I've learned that at times war seems like an inevitable law of nature. You can't avoid it. But at the same time, peace can be really achieved. But that peace is not born in big conferences, and certainly not in social media with all these vicious tweets nowadays. Rather, it is born here and everywhere in the fabric of society. Educators, lawyers, doctors, human rights activists, families of victims. It is they who ultimately make the difference. After all these years, I still feel privileged every time I get to tell the story of one of these people, like Dr. Mukwege in Congo. They are the everyday heroes of our time. Recently, my thoughts also have gone out to those who have died practicing this profession, this calling. Over the past 25 years, some 2,000, yes, 2,000 of my colleagues have died. This year, at a staggering rate of 2 dead colleagues every week, dying to tell the story, literally. That is important. It matters, because when they die, the story dies. The victims of war and violence die a second time then, because of the silence. Speaking of silence, that brings me to the people of Mosul, who were living under the so-called caliphate. They lived through the worst cruelty and violence under religious intolerance. 6 months after Mosul fell, you saw the pictures, I had to make my way through hundreds, perhaps thousands of bodies, casually heaped together in basements, tossed from rocks in wheelchairs. Some of them were children, their primitive toys next to them. This must have been how Dante imagined his Inferno. And at the same time, in that crushing silence, I found humanity. I needed that so much. We all need that. So let me tell you the story of true courage. Imagine. And imagine, outside in the darkness, there is only the sound of shooting, the blasts of the grenades, the screaming of torture. And then in your basement, as this young musician told me, you take your guitar or violin and start to play quietly. You record it, you post it on Facebook, knowing that the penalty is death. Because music or any expression of human joy is prohibited. The strings of the guitar will be used to strangle your friends or to make booby traps. In such a world, the sound of music becomes an antidote to intolerance. When passing by Mosul's raised music academy, I heard the song Imagine. It may be a naive song from my youth, but what I really heard in the midst of all this destruction was hope. So we decided to bring musical instruments to Mosul. We called this project of hope Imagine Mosul. And thousands of Belgians responded with enthusiasm. And that is the most important thing for me. We don't make stories for there, we make stories for here. with ourselves. It struck this sensitive chord in our own society, which is longing for hope and action against polarization and hatred. It gave me strength, because even as a journalist, sometimes in the darkness, you need this glimmer of hope. First and foremost, journalism must deliver accurate reporting, but it can be more. It can be more, because journalism can also be a means to an end. And this end is a just and fair society, without violence or hatred. Reach out through the heart into the minds. We all need antidote. The first victim of war in my profession is truth. This is many war journalists' motto. But it is only part of the actual story, because what we noticed is that human rights, the rights we all share as people, are buried right alongside the truth. It is easy, I noticed the past 30 years, to report on something when you are not directly involved, far away, exotic. But when the war is not so far from home, what if the threat creeps closer? The more involved we are, as we see nowadays, the thicker the fog of war. For the past 2 decades, borders of international right have shifted, bit by bit. Chemical weapons, I saw them. The horror of Daesh, ISIS, war propaganda in the form of fake news, blind terror in our own country, we know in Belgium. The dangers and challenges are high, and thus, so is the temptation to take the easy way out. This puts not only human rights under pressure, but also our own Western rule of law. That path leads to dehumanization. Over the past few years, too many reports have appeared from the UN, from Amnesty International, from Human Rights Watch, Doctors Without Borders, you name it. The organizations all around the world that bear witness to the horrors of war and the crimes against humanity that are committed. The evidence, the things they uncover, there are now too many of them to deny. The wars in recent years have put our moral compass to the test, have put my moral compass to the test. And this brings me to our own society. Let me start with a quote that keeps haunting me for years. It is from Amin Malouf. It's an Arab, a Lebanese and a Frenchman, Christian and Oriental, straddling both worlds, East and West. He said the following words: "We entered a new era without a compass. My worries are those of a follower of enlightenment, one who sees the light flicker, grow weaker, and in some countries even go out. These are the worries of someone who cherishes freedom." These are observations, ladies and gentlemen, that I feel every day in my work as a war correspondent in this era. So I am worried. I am worried. We live in a world where people live longer, where more people get more opportunities and could be happier. But at the same time, it is a world where every 2 seconds, another person becomes a refugee. Tens of millions worldwide, more than any time since the end of World War II. In this world, I see old specters, old ghosts coming back to haunt us. Those of fear and hatred of others. It is like a wheel which keeps on spinning and always lands at the same point. Some people remind us of the 1930s, but this isn't a case of history repeating itself. It is the mechanism of exclusion, human behavior in times of fear. It is that mechanism that remains the same. We live in the age of polarization, of us against them, the other is back and dominates every debate, every election we noticed the last years. War refugees are seen as people taking advantage. Their suffering has become secondary to the inconvenience to us. We call it fortune seekers, if the disdainful tweets can be believed. Some of them are fortune seekers, of course. Fleeing war, fleeing drought because of the climate change, fleeing poverty. But may we make another distinction? Call a spade, and then look for a humane solution. Whoever nowadays helps a person who is drawing becomes an ally to human traffickers. Anyone who wishes to respect international law becomes an out-of-touch judge. It's an insult nowadays. Journalists are intimidated. Any and all nuance disappears. Sowing fear of the other is the best-selling product in 21st century political market. Facts and solutions are being liquidated, also in Europe, in our own society. As an historian and a war correspondent, I know that war is waged every day with two weapons. Two very simple weapons: hatred and fear. The message nowadays is simple. We are being threatened, we are surrounded, we are overwhelmed, the other gets the blame, becomes less than human, and then even inhuman, until finally you can do what you want. No war can be waged without fear and hatred. Those, and I believe it is really like that, those who spread fear and sow hatred have a responsibility, because they lay the foundations for the war crimes of tomorrow. Never again, when we are speaking in this impressive palace, but never again was the mantra of those who helped bring peace to Europe. They have wearied of the fight. They are tired. It's an older generation. They are leaving the stage. The voice of some in a new generation sounds differently. They haven't the slightest notion of what war actually means. And it's now droning out to rest with a new language. But let me tell you, those who feed the belly of the beast will never manage to get the animal back in its cage. If history teaches us one thing, it's that populism, whether left-leaning or right-leaning, never ends well. These are simplistic remedies for complex problems. Do I have the right to speak about this? 30 years of war reporting are etched into my soul. I see how it begins, how it grows, and just what it becomes. Rwanda, the Congo, Somalia, Iraq, Syria, too many places. The list goes on and on where I've been. Conflicts bring out the best and the worst in people. It is easy for us, and then I have to think about my grandfather, who taught me about this. He lived through the Second World War. It is easy for us to judge in hindsight, but are we choosing the right path at the time itself? In our time, what is our moral compass? Are we aware of that? The French philosopher Sartre, he said, every word has consequences. Every silence too. We are also facing that choice, and certainly in my profession. But every one of us, I have made my choice, because silence is not an option. And therefore, I'm very grateful for this prize. Thank you.
And after that, there can only be one thing: music. Thank you very much to our musicians. Congratulations to Leonardo and to Rudy. Thank you for speaking your truths to us today. We needed to hear it. And thank you to everyone for coming to this important celebration and affirmation of peace building through these Carnegie Prizes. I hope you can all join us now for a reception in the entrance hall. Thank you. Goodbye.